Let me guess, at some point in your life someone told you to cut down on ugali. Maybe it was a doctor, maybe a relative, maybe someone on Twitter with a strong opinion and no sources. They told you it was too heavy. They told you carbs are bad. They made you feel guilty for eating the food you grew up on, the food your mother made, the food that was on the table every single evening. And here is what I want to say first. Ugali is not the enemy. But something on your plate probably is, and chances are you have never once suspected it. Today on Dakika Afya, we are breaking down the real story behind carbohydrates, portion sizes, and what is actually driving the rise in weight-related health problems across Kenya. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will look at your plate completely differently. So why does ugali carry such a bad reputation? The answer starts with a wave of Western diet advice that flooded the internet roughly 15 years ago. Cut carbs, go keto, carbs make you fat. That entire narrative was built around the eating habits of Americans and Europeans, people eating white bread 3 times a day, processed cereals, pasta, cookies. It was then copy-pasted onto every culture on Earth, including ours, without anyone stopping to ask whether it actually applies to how Kenyans eat. Here is the truth. Carbohydrates are not inherently bad. Your brain runs on glucose. Your muscles run on glucose. Every cell in your body needs it to function. The question was never carbs or no carbs. The question has always been which carbs, how much of them, and critically, what you are eating alongside them. And that is exactly where the real conversation about Kenyan eating habits needs to happen. Let us start with portions, because this is where most Kenyans are genuinely going wrong, and it has nothing to do with ugali being bad for you. A standard serving of ugali from a nutrition standpoint is roughly the size of your closed fist. One fist. That is a single serving. Now think about how ugali is actually served in most Kenyan homes, in restaurants, in hotels. We are talking 3, 4, sometimes 5 times that amount on a single plate. Not because anyone is being reckless, but because that is what we were served growing up. That is what looks normal, and finishing your plate was a sign of respect and appreciation. For whoever cooked, the problem is not the ugali itself. The problem is that we have normalized portion sizes that are 2 to 3 times what the body actually needs in a single sitting. And this compounds faster than people realize. Eat that amount twice a day, 7 days a week, and your body is dealing with a consistent calorie surplus that it has to store somewhere. Over months and years, that surplus becomes visible, and more importantly, it becomes a metabolic burden that contributes to insulin resistance, which, as we covered in our last video, is the starting point for type 2 diabetes. The fix here is not dramatic. You do not need to stop eating ugali. Start by being intentional about the serving size. 1 fist-sized portion, not 3. Eat slowly enough to notice when you are actually full, because your brain takes roughly 20 minutes to register fullness after your stomach does. That gap is where most overeating happens. Now here is the part that most people completely miss. This is where the actual problem lives. It is not the ugali, it is what we eat with it and how little of the right things we put beside it. Think about a typical Kenyan plate. Ugali, meat, and sometimes that is it. No vegetables, no fiber, just starch and protein and the fat from the meat. Or the ugali comes with a small token serving of sukuma wiki cooked in a generous amount of oil, while the bulk of the plate is still ugali and a large fatty piece of meat. Here is what happens in your body when you eat a large carbohydrate portion with very little fiber alongside it. Your blood sugar rises fast and hard. Your body releases a large amount of insulin to manage that spike. That spike and crash cycle, repeated daily over years, is one of the central mechanisms behind the development of type 2 diabetes. This is documented and supported by nutritional research from institutions including the World Health Organization. The balance your plate actually needs looks roughly like this. Half your plate should be vegetables, a quarter should be protein, and a quarter should be your starchy carbohydrate. In a Kenyan context, that translates to a moderate ugali portion, a generous serving of sukuma wiki or any other vegetable cooked with minimal oil, and a reasonable piece of lean protein. That is not a Western diet. That is balance. It fits perfectly within Kenyan food culture. It simply requires adjusting the ratios we were raised on. There is one more layer to this that is worth understanding, especially as Kenya's food environment continues to change. Not all ugali is nutritionally the same. Traditional finger millet flour, Wimbi, is genuinely one of the most nutritious staple grains available in Kenya. It is high in fiber, higher in protein than refined maize flour, and has a lower glycemic index, meaning it raises blood sugar more slowly and steadily rather than in a sharp spike. Previous generations of Kenyans were eating this regularly, and it was quietly excellent for long-term metabolic health. Most of the maize flour sold in supermarkets today is highly refined. The husk, the germ, and most of the fiber stripped away during processing, leaving primarily starch. It is cheaper, it cooks faster, it tastes familiar. But nutritionally, it is a significantly weaker product compared to what was widely available a generation ago. This is not about guilt or making expensive food choices. Finger millet flour is widely available across Kenya and is often comparable in price to refined maize flour. Even mixing the two, half refined maize flour, half finger millet, meaningfully changes the nutritional profile of your ugali. That is a small, affordable, practical change anyone can make starting this week. The same logic applies to bread. Switching from white bread to whole wheat bread is one of the simplest single-item dietary swaps for long-term metabolic health. Same price point, same convenience at the supermarket, significantly more fiber. No dramatic lifestyle overhaul required. Let me quickly address two myths I know are circulating out there. Myth 1. Eating ugali at night makes you gain weight. This is not accurate. What causes weight gain is consistently consuming more calories than your body uses, and that has very little to do with what time of day you eat them. Timing matters far less than total intake and food quality over time. A balanced, appropriately portioned meal eaten at 8 in the evening is not your problem. Myth 2. Going keto will fix everything. Ketogenic diets have legitimate clinical applications. They are used in epilepsy management, and some people find them useful for short-term weight loss. But for most ordinary Kenyans eating on a normal budget, completely eliminating carbohydrates is unnecessary, difficult to sustain long-term, and frankly does not fit our food culture or our grocery budgets. You do not need keto. You need balance, better portions, and more vegetables on that plate. So what do you actually do with all of this? 3 things, starting today. 1. Right-size your ugali. 1 fist-size portion per meal. Let the rest of the plate be vegetables and protein, not more starch. 2. Load up on the vegetables. Sukuma wiki, managu, terere, spinach, whatever is available and affordable to you. The fiber in vegetables slows down how fast carbohydrates enter your bloodstream. It acts as a natural buffer against blood sugar spikes. Most Kenyans are eating nowhere near enough of it, and that gap is doing real long-term damage. 3. Explore finger millet. Wimbi ugali, millet porridge for breakfast, or even a blended flour for everyday cooking. It is local, it is affordable, it is genuinely more nutritious than pure refined maize flour, and it has been part of Kenyan food culture for centuries. Going back to it is not a step backward. It is a smart step forward. Ugali did not cause Kenya's health problems. A combination of shrinking vegetable portions, oversized starch servings, more processed food, and decades of misapplied Western diet advice did. The solution is not to eat like someone in California. The solution is to eat like a smarter, more intentional version of how our grandparents ate. Balanced, local, and aware. If this video changed how you think about what is on your plate, leave a comment below. Tell me what a typical meal looks like for you, and let us talk about it. And subscribe to Dakika ya Afya for a new health video every week. Straightforward, research-based, and made specifically for Kenyans. Stay well. See you next time.